Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Good Flight Podcast. I'm your co-host, John Graham, and today on episode 4, we talk with a good friend, Max Tubman. Max owns BFD Systems. They make some of the biggest drones in the country, if not the world. And he tells us what it takes to start working in such an awesome industry, some of the new technology he's working on, and Paul and I are able to get into behind the scenes a little bit at what it's like to work at one of the best drone manufacturers out there. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to episode 4 on the Good Flight Podcast.
Good to have you here. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, it's good. I was trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
With the family quarantine / drone business thing. You know how it goes?
Sorta.
Yeah.
I don't
John
have
knows
much
how it
of a
goes.
family yet.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
never a better time.
Yeah, I love trying to hold it together. In fact, it's being held pretty well right now. I'm using E6000. That's my preferred glue to hold it together. What, Max?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a technical conversation, right?
Yeah.
You own a drone manufacturing company, right? So you
Yeah.
love the technical stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Although I'm like the dumbest person here, but yeah.
I don't think
yeah.
so.
We use E6000s on the mini talents all the time. So
Cool.
but,
Yeah, the mini talons. I hope to actually. That's something I'm sure we're going to talk about it because you're obsessed with mini talons. Every time I talk to you, you mention your mini talon.
Yeah, at this moment, yeah.
But what I want to do is introduce you to our listeners and our viewers, and give them a little bit of a brief history about how we met and how you know Nurk. This is kind of a nice circle. We've all worked together in real life before. Max and I, you and I've worked together for the past few years together. You're the owner of a company called BFD Systems, which builds our big drones, the drones I was talking about in episode 1, actually. So I'm actually really awesome. It's an awesome opportunity to have you on the show because I have a lot of questions. We're gonna dig deep today.
Happy to be here. Big fan of the pod. I was gonna wear my BFD shirt, but you were on the first episode, so
Yeah,
I couldn't mock you there.
I'm still waiting for the sponsorship check to cash. They're having problems.
Yeah, right
Good.
here.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Good Flight.
Oh, I totally messed that up. It was like halfway through. Let's leave it in.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us tonight on the Good Flight. Really excited to have you guys chat. But so Max and John know each other better than I know John or Max. So I'm gonna let John introduce Max, and then you guys kind of start in, and then eventually I'll kind of slide in because of how we met, and then we'll go into the future from there.
That sounds great, everybody. Well, welcome to episode 4 of the Good Flight Drone Podcast. This is our second interview, so this is going to go over like a charm, I bet. But let me introduce you to Max Tubman. He's our guest of the show. As I just stated before, he is the owner and of BFD Systems Drones. They're based out of Philadelphia, which I guess actually now New Jersey, Pennsauken. Congratulations on just moving to your bigger, better facility over there. Max and I have worked together for a few years, and he's a great guy, and I just wanted to get him on the show as soon as possible because I'm sure that we will be seeing him time and time again. Max, you're actually at your shop right now in New Jersey, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we're still kind of Philly at heart, but we moved across the bridge to Pennsauken, so much bigger space now. It's awesome. We moved March 1st, so we got everything in here, kind of unpacked, started everything up, and then basically had to send everyone home. We have a few people working here now, but most people are remote. So
That's cool. And what about that new? I've been there once, but briefly, and I was wearing a mask over my eyes. I couldn't see much of what was going on. But tell me about what makes this space better than your old space, or why did you have to move in the first place?
Well, it's really good for tiny whoop racing, which was the primary thought. No, really, it's way bigger.
How
We
much bigger?
It is 5 times the size of the last spot. So
Yeah, I've been to your shop, or your Philadelphia shop once. I was like, it's awesome. It is
yeah,
tight in here. There were 10, 11, 12 people and an intern, and I'm just like,
yeah,
dude, how do you guys fit in here? It's nuts. And it
yeah,
was like part of a bigger warehouse, like where there's other people. So like I felt crowded, and I was only there for like 20 minutes.
yeah. No, it's cool that with that building, like there's some evolution to the business there. Me and Evan, who's one of the co-founders here, we used to work for Griffin Dynamics, running their U.S. office. So we started a Griffin Dynamics office in that building, in like a smaller room, which was like 600 square feet. And then we started BFD, and then with BFD we had about 1,200 square feet, and then we got another 1,000 square feet across the street, which was mostly for like storage and testing. And then this place is a little over 6,000 square feet. So uh,
Feel good to
it's
stretch
quite.
out a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. And now kind of with the quarantine, it works out because people can work and have their own spot and not
You can
interact with each other.
actually be 6 feet from each other,
Yeah, at the other
which
place
was not possible before.
we had another employee that were gonna have to sit on somebody else's lap. So now it's good. Yeah, much better. It's kind
What
of a
is
bummer that we haven't like fully been able to utilize it just yet, because now we're just slowly starting to bring our staff back in. But most of the engineers and stuff can do a lot of their work from home with almost the same efficiency. So
what does BFD stand for?
it depends on who you ask. Sometimes at trade shows, I'll say that it's the initials of all the founders, and they're like, "Yeah, but your name's Max. Like, what are you talking about? Where is it?" Or Big Friendly Drones, or whatever else you want to come up with. The official name, like on the paper, is BFD Systems, so you can kind of apply whatever meaning you want.
So
The
there is
D,
no, it's not actually an acronym.
yeah,
it's an acronym. You can
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
figure out what it
D
is.
stands for drone. We have a T-shirt. Actually, John was wearing it. It's
Yeah.
BFD Systems. The D stands for drone, because everyone in the beginning was like, "Big freaking deal." I was like, "No, we're a drone company. D stands for drone."
Yeah,
So
I was explaining it to my in-laws what it was called at one point, and I just was like, "It's big, friendly drones,"
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like, "Right."
yeah. Well, we kind of started the company. Evan and I, we had worked for a few different drone companies, both on like the service side and the manufacturing side. We've been to some of these trade shows, and a lot of these trade shows are just a little bit stuffy for like the industrial side. So we were just like, oh, well, we'll bring a little humor into it, and instead of having some vaporware product, we'll actually just have stuff that works. So the BFD thing was kind of meant to loosen up people a little bit in the industry.
Well,
So.
you just mentioned there that your background in a drone services company. Yeah, I remember that actually. Before we knew each other, I knew of you because we're kind of from the same marketplace. But yeah, what about that do you recall as like one of your fondest memories back when you were a service company before you were primarily a drone manufacturer?
Yeah. Well, it was so I used to work in the film industry. I went to school for film, so I used to work on TV. I did work in documentaries for a while, did some feature film stuff. But from early on in that, I graduated college in 2008. Early on, about 2010, I was already into RC stuff. So I used to fly like Control Line, which was like the airplane with on a string when I was like really young.
Yeah,
And
it's
then I
like pop.
flew.
It's like Pop used to flies that in
Yeah,
cornfields.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did it with my grandfather. It's awesome. And then I got into RC planes, like a nitro plane, and then electric, and then I got to helicopters later on. Kind of like faded out from it in college a little bit, and then at the end of college, I started to get back into it. And then I was working on film sets or documentaries, a bunch of different stuff, and I was like, oh, you can just easily put cameras on these helicopters. So I was like flying the 450, 500 size helicopters, and yeah, it's just like a natural evolution, and I'm all about kind of like finding niche markets for myself to work in. And I was like, oh, like there's so many people doing assistant camera work right now, or camera operating or whatever, but there's like you can't just become a drone operator in 2010. You had to like know what you're doing somewhat. That's all changed now, but so
Yeah,
so
now the riffraff, everybody's involved, and
yeah.
But
which
I call that the my nephew flies a drone phenomenon.
yeah, oh yeah, totally.
does he have a
So
card? Your nephew?
Doesn't matter.
see,
That's the problem.
yeah. So I did that for a while, and I started my own company with a buddy of mine, Dan Sheets, who Johnny you know well, works in the industry, and he would camera operate. I had a few other friends that would camera operate who worked in the industry, and did that for a while. I went to go work for another drone company for a short bit during the days of Triple Three, and then from there, I went to go work for Griffin Dynamics for I think 2 years or so in 2016 or 17.
I'm going to rewind back to film school days. I didn't go to film school. Paul, did you go to film school, or what? Did you go to school at all?
I have a undergrad in software engineering.
Yeah, I have an undergrad in a communications major, but doesn't have anything to do with film. Yeah, very liberal arts based, just get me out of there type of thing. But Max, when you were in film school, could you even have imagined like where you would be today and your involvement? Because you're still involved in the film industry, but like, yeah, how could you imagine where you are now?
No, I mean honestly, I know I could not have imagined it. When I did film, like I think I signed up for the film degree because I was like, oh well, like I can just do. I love making videos. Like instead of writing a paper, I'd convince my teachers to like let me do a video instead, and I would spend so much more time on the video than I would ever take to write a paper. So I thought I was like cheating the system, but really I was just following my passion. So yeah, I had no idea. Like when I went to school, like I didn't even know you could go to school for film. I was like, oh, I could just do this for a career. This is awesome. So like, yeah, I had no idea. And then with the helicopter thing, that was more like, again, I thought I'm cheating the system because I just love playing with helicopters. So if I get someone to pay me to like mess around with my T-Rex helicopters, that's awesome. So yeah, every year I like look back at the last year. I'm like, I don't know how I got to this spot. It's just like this evolution.
So most recently, how do you feel like you're cheating the system today? What's going on today?
Oh, we're just playing with the coolest toys. I just get to play with the coolest toys. And like I love the people I work with, and I think there's a lot easier ways to make money. I say that like all the time when people are like, oh, you own your own business. Like, trust me, there's a lot easier ways to make money than to do this. But I love it. Like I'm super passionate about it. Like to a point where when I'm like hanging out with people, I have to like not talk about it because I'll just talk people's ears off about drones. Not everyone is as passionate about it. Yeah, exactly.
You can talk ours out. That's fine.
Yeah. This is perfect.
That's actually the great thing about the Good Flight podcast, because I feel the same exact way. Like my parents, my wife, my friends, they're all sick and tired of it. But this is a platform where we can get on. We can talk about it as long as we want. So don't feel the pressure here, man. Let it out.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Release. we're really not podcast hosts as much as we are like therapists.
Drone nerds.
We're just gonna lay out that long couch. You can lay down and just vent your drone needs.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, except we don't get paid again. There's lots easier ways to make money out there. I'm thinking therapist is a good one. But
we're still working on getting BFD Systems on board as our title sponsor.
Yeah. Well, you guys got to come out here, do a little trip. We'll work something out.
Yeah. That's definitely gonna happen
once we're able to all hang out again.
Yeah.
So you made this transition into the, I'm going to say, industrial and commercial drone manufacturing space. That's a pretty big jump from a guy playing with helicopters and things like that. You mentioned your partner Evan before. What is, how does that, how does that help the situation, or how did you make that jump to become a guy that makes some of the best drones in the world at this point?
Yeah. So, I met Evan doing film stuff. Actually, I was doing a job on a show called Alpha House, which was on Amazon for a couple seasons. And there's a scene where John Goodman had to like talk to these political pact operatives, and the theme of the show was they couldn't meet face to face, so they had a drone with like a screen, and they would FaceTime through the drone. So I was like, this sounds awesome. And then also he shoots them with a shotgun, so we blew up a ton of them. So it's an awesome show, awesome opportunity. But I needed 2 drones. So I could obviously fly the one. And we were flying like a Flame Wheel 450 frame with, I don't know what was on it. Maybe it was like a Nosley or something. I can't remember.
It's like
but
the
some
red
like
and white, like
yeah,
yeah, plasticky, yeah.
it's been knocked off so many times. I don't even know if DJI sells it anymore. But it was like an awesome kit. It was like my first multi rotor actually. So in any case, and it was like really front heavy because it had this iPad. We tried to scoot the battery all the way back. No GPS because we were inside. And I didn't realize because at that time, this was in 2013, I think. But there wasn't that a great like drone community that there was like an online forums, but not like people I could go and talk to and do it. Like, so I just assumed everyone knew how to fly these things. But turns out I interviewed like 20 people, and Evan was the first person I met just from like Facebook reference that could actually fly the thing nose in, like go around a tree and come back. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. So that's where we became friends. And in the shot, we like fly these two drones in. It's like in a parking garage. So it's a pretty tricky shot. And John Goodman has these talks to talk with the drones. They have to fly next to each other. If it was someone asked me to do this again today, I would probably be like, that's not a good idea. But back then it was like, a little bit different rules. So
This is the wild, wild west back then.
for sure. So, anyways, and Evan is just like an incredible craftsman. He's a friggin' genius. So he can see something that would be, we'll have the engineers here. Evan's not technically an engineer, but we'll have the engineers, and they'll come up with a really smart solution for a complex problem. And Evan will be like, well, yeah, but this is like a much easier way to like do this thing. So, Evan is this like Evan and I's collaboration, like our two strengths are what makes BFD, along with some of the other partners and like the whole family here. But Evan's ability to just be a master craftsman, it is really crucial to the whole circus here.
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to kind of just hang out many days at your shop, just kind of be a fly on the wall, just like, playing with my toys in the corner to watch you guys work.
Yeah.
And it is really amazing because the problems you guys have to solve on a daily basis are real. I mean, these drones are going out the door, and you guys are, you know, literally, whether it's a battery issue or a motor issue, listening to how you come out of the office, may not even be knowing what's going on, just like a typical boss. And, you jump in and you throw out the best solution and you kind of walk away. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that guy's awesome. But, and Evan's the same way, certainly.
Yeah,
I had
totally.
no idea he wasn't an engineer. Or technically an engineer, as you say. But
Yeah.
yeah, to me, he is. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
guy I go to for help, for information on how to build something.
Yeah. He's incredibly smart when it comes to mechanical, electrical, just like a wealth of knowledge. And then we have like obviously the developers here who are like working on the ArduPilot code and software and tuning, and electrical engineers and mechanical engineers also. But Evan and I are the primary ringleaders here. And then we're very fortunate to have such a great team here. Everyone really brings their strengths to the table.
How important was that collaboration between you and Evan, like starting off? Like, were there some tough, journeys you guys went through, and like it maybe wouldn't have succeeded if you guys didn't have each other's back?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if a specific example, but like I cannot do what Evan can do, and Evan cannot do what I do. So like it's just like a constant, it's a constant collaboration. So like we wouldn't have gotten past the start line, and this happened even before BFD. We used to work for some other companies and like traveling around the country doing trade shows, building aircraft for people. Like we got a job on a TV show. This was like while I was between a variety of different jobs. We got a job on a major network TV show, and they were like, all right, we need to fly this Alexa Mini with like, Preston autofocus assist. It wasn't like a light package. We're like, all right, cool. And we like built a drone in like a few days, like from scratch, basically, like, and like a gimbal and everything. We did it, and it went really well. Like we had like a really cool hot swap module that we were working with, and so yeah, we in general, whether it's on a film set or like we used to do like some industrial jobs with some like mag scans or lidar scans, stuff like that. We have a really good workflow together.
Awesome. We've kind of danced around a little bit, but you're talking about how BFD is solving all these problems and chipping things out. Like what are the primary problems that BFD solves, and just in terms of like general, whether that's like big market categories or even like something that you're working on right now, like
Yeah.
for the listeners, like what would they expect to come out of BFD Systems? Is it, something like a Freefly product? Is it something like a DJI product? Like, kind of help everybody kind of paint a picture for like what it is that you're providing for your customers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So BFD is kind of a small batch manufacturing, but primarily like aircraft R&D. So DJI makes such a cool product, and their end-to-end integration is really unparalleled. But when we were starting BFD, one of our main focuses is like, okay, we're not going to compete with DJI because there's no way. They have billions of dollars, massive government subsidies, and a huge head start. So what we can do, DJI fills a huge portion of the market, but maybe they leave out, I don't know, 15% of the market of people who can't use DJI products, aside from all the security issues, but just for like, it doesn't hold the payload or it doesn't have the redundancy or, whatever it is. That market is still huge. And even if BFD takes a small portion of it, that's a huge market. So to kind of elaborate on that, a lot of our customers make specialized payloads. So one of them is a company called HiSpecs. They make a hyperspectral sensor. So you might have heard of a multispectral camera, which will look at 4 or 12 bands of light or electromagnetic radiation. This camera will look at like 400 plus or more. So it's for all sorts of stuff. You could use it for forestry or looking for material in geological surveys, or if something like if a tank is hiding in a field, they'll be able to find it, or like a bomb. If they did an experiment where if someone was to bury a bomb, it would tell the difference of like the moisture content in the soil. So it's like a really crazy camera.
Sounds like extraterrestrial, like alien technology.
That's one sensor. They're a great company. They're out of Norway. Every time we talk to them about them, we share booth space with them a lot. Every time I learn more about the camera, I'm like, this is just the most magical device ever. So that's one example. And then other examples are people want something that's built from the ground up. So we'll design an aircraft for them. We'll build a couple, and then we'll manufacture it somewhere else with a manufacturing partner. And then they'll white label the drone to say, oh, this is, such and such company's drone, not a BFD drone. So we do a lot of that. And then a lot of like payload integration. So taking a lot of payloads will use offboard computing where, a company will be working on a program where they have some service or software or payload. And this is very common in the drone industry. Like the actual aircraft is so much an afterthought in a lot of these like drone startup companies. Like, oh, we're going to have this, like, I don't want to give any examples because I don't want to call anybody out, but like there's so many things.
Example. So you're saying like if like, never mind. I don't have an example.
There's a lot of examples. Like if you just Google some drone startup company, like the drone itself, like the actual flying aircraft is very much an afterthought. So we fill that niche where people are like, we have this software for machine vision or for counter UAS or hardware for, finding issues on utilities. Like we just need to fly. Like we have all the camera thing figured out, all the software. We need somebody to keep it in the air safely in a redundant fashion, so it can't crash if there's an issue that's going to go beyond line of sight or, fly in the rain. We do tethered drones. So tethered drone will hold, has a thin cable that will supply high voltage to the drone and then keep it up in the air for days at a time.
That's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
And something,
on those. Yeah. So for like emergency cell phone or like high bandwidth areas where they need more cell service or like a radio repeater. So there's a lot of like companies that make tethered drones, but a lot of them are built around a DJI, which can only lift a certain amount of weight or doesn't like have fiber optic backhaul. So you don't have like a high data throughput in the tether itself. So
it's not manufactured in the States.
Yeah, not manufactured in the States. Yeah.
That was something that kind of surprised me, was like how many people or how many opportunities are impacted by that. Like, especially if you think like military or security or something like that, like it's got to all be from here.
Yeah, exactly. And you got a lot of people who are like these startups, and a lot of them will have super smart people, but they haven't used drones in the field or RC aircraft in the field for, 10 or 20 years. So not obviously that's not true about everybody, but a lot of them that we talked to are like, oh, well, you kind of like, you didn't look up how drones work before you came up with this idea. So,
Well, that's where you guys step in, and your
yeah,
specialty, as what you just said, is the aircraft, right? So getting
yeah,
that special package into the air to complete the mission,
yeah.
whatever that mission may be,
And
right?
primarily, yeah, exactly. And primarily it's heavy lift. So we consider that, it's all relative, but we consider that to be like 15 to 40 pounds on average. Heavy
Just
lift
for
and long
payload.
endurance. Yeah, just for the payload. Yeah. So,
Yeah, which is actually kind of where that's exactly the same reason why we need a BFD drone in the film business. I'm just going to
yeah,
kind of pull this back into where I can relate. Yeah, our camera systems that attach pretty much independently to the bottom of these BFD drones. We're flying the S8, which is a X8. It's got 8 motors on 4 arms, as you guys might remember from the first episode. It looks incredible, but the camera system basically just clicks on and attaches to the bottom of that drone, completely independent of the aircraft itself. The
yeah,
pilot's looking out of a camera that's attached to the aircraft, but the camera operator is an independent control. Um, yeah, and it works fantastic. And that's how we actually prefer to, in the film business, to have those independent systems. That way we can isolate an issue when, if we have to troubleshoot something, we use the best systems available for each of the platforms. So we use the best aircraft possible. We use the best camera available. We use the best follow focus system, which is how, First AC is able to pull focus to ensure it's sharp, do different camera controls, things like that. Um, do your clients in the industrial space, are they looking at you for that same reason? Are they looking for you to be the best manufacturer, or do they sometimes not even care, and they just, like you just said, they just need it to work?
both, I guess. Like, I think a lot of our customers come to us because they want to be able to talk to somebody on the other line and say, this is the problem that I need to solve. And we need to work with the actual people building these things and designing them and flying them to know that, our needs are being taken care of. So I think a lot of it comes down to, the customization, and we'll try to get everyone into, like, we have about 5 aircraft that we could use, but then people will say, we want to have a 28-volt power drop that's 400 watts, which is like a ton of power. So, we'll make a power regulator that could be on the bottom, or how it's going to have interface with the flight controller. So say, the payload's going to tell the drone to go check out, an area of interest. That IO on the bottom of the drone is like constantly what we're working on with customers to see how is your payload going to work with the drone. So kind of, in a way, it's a little bit different than what you just described as the camera being different in cinema. Whereas instead of, we don't want this to be like a science experiment where you have an aircraft and then you have like a payload and like wires coming out everywhere. We want the aircraft and the payload to be all part of a system, a UAS, unmanned aerial system, not like all these different things. So it's basically like a big flying computer. And then, like you said, like it's an X8. So a, generally speaking, there's some new really cool software that can solve these, but it's in the forefront. But generally speaking, a quad rotor is not redundant. So if you lose any part of your propulsive motors, you're just going to drop. A hexacopter, depending on how you're loaded, you're going to spin or you're going to drop. And an X8 or a flat octocopter, if you lose a motor or 2 or 3, depending on how you're loaded, you'll still be able to fly. So a lot of the customers,
But
like, their
just to be
payload.
clear, we're talking about like
Yeah.
how graceful these things crash, essentially, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, an X8 doesn't
Or
crash. Yeah, that's the point. Like a hexacopter, like a
crash
6 rotor
land.
aircraft, it'll crash land. And depending on how much weight, like your thrust to weight ratio, it'll be almost like a parachute. In
I've
the
actually experienced that. I
yeah,
was flying a hexacopter for something, and it lost one motor, and I had to just like control and crash. Like
yeah.
it was not a fun experience. I'll tell you
No,
that.
for sure. And for a lot of people, that's fine. But like for our customers that have a one of a kind payload that's priceless, or like on average, a lot of these payloads are like over 250 or 500 grand just for what's underneath the drone.
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, we just want the redundancy. Like, and also like as you get into beyond line of sight, which is like where you really start to see the return on investment on drones. That's like the next step in industrial drones. You really just want to have redundancy so that like if you can't see the drone, you just know it's going to like work like well into its mission and on its way back.
So kind of talking like big picture about BFD, we kind of see a lot of like potential different examples of like products and projects that you've worked on. But like maybe to kind of give the audience a little bit more like specific, clear kind of example, could you maybe talk about like one of your like most rewarding, like one of the projects that you've worked on that's the most exciting to you? Just because that, I think that will help us kind of solidify like the whole process that BFD goes through to develop a project, but then, you know, also something that you're excited about. So
For sure. Well,
all the way from inception all the way to delivery and what it's doing in the field now, if you can.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, like most of our projects, we can't talk about or show, but I have plenty of examples. But some of the coolest ones, like some of the stuff that I worked on with you at one point, is you know below the radar. So, but there's a lot of really cool examples. Like we're working on a hydrogen fuel cell drone, which is so hot right now. Hydrogen fuel cell.
Insane.
Everyone loves talking
That's
about hydrogen
hot.
fuel cell.
Like
So hot.
people
right
want hydrogen fuel cell drones. That's
Yeah. And one of the things that we're working with a company called Ballard. They make some of the best fuel cells in the world. But what's different about this fuel cell system versus some of the other companies, there's a ton of people who make them, is this one is a water cooled system. So similar to like a water cooled versus air cooled engine, is the performance of a water cooled system is way more controlled, regardless of what the temperature is outside or the humidity levels. So a lot of air breathers are air cooled. I'm probably going to misspeak at some point. So a hydrogen fuel cell person might have to jump in and correct me.
Yeah, my job is to misspeak. You said something about mouth breathing drones?
Yeah, air breathing drones. Yeah, basically the same, but the same basic meaning. So the water cooled systems can fly in really cold temperatures, hot temperatures, different humidity levels. So I'm pretty sure that BFD was the first in the galaxy, as far as we know, to have a water cooled flying multi-rotor.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's got a very high energy density, but a low power density. So that's like you can't put out that many watts, but the watts it can put out for a very long time. So it's like perfect for a small payload, like a zoom, RGB zoom camera and a thermal, which you could use for search and rescue, pipeline inspection. Really excels in that beyond line of sight world. So,
but we're not really talking about small at the end of the day. For a lot of people, they think small is like, like what are we talking? You said something like 10, 12 pounds or something?
No, not with the hydrogen. So it is small by like normal people's perception, more normal drone people. It's like about 2 to 4 pounds, depending on the size of the tank. So for us, that's like way smaller than what we normally do.
Right.
But that will hold like a Grimsey, like S1 gimbal with like a Workswell, a Weiris camera. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a really cool thermal camera. Look it up. It's an awesome thermal camera. But yes, all sorts of small type of payloads like that, or like a multispectral camera, like a Mika Sense. So if you want to do agricultural scans or scans on plant life, like there's a lot of options in that weight range. So it's like basically like something that a M200, like a DJI M200 would fly, but it would just fly for way longer. So
about how long is that something you can share yet, or?
I don't want to misspeak, but right now we're getting about 90 minutes. But as technology with the regulators increases, then we can put more pressure into the hydrogen fuel, hydrogen tank. So then you get much longer flight times. So, but that's so much. Yeah. So the regulator is what controls the high pressure hydrogen into the fuel stack. So, but at this point, we're still very much in we're getting near the end of development. So we're on version 3. So I think it was beginning of last year, we had version 1, which was like an 8S system as far as the voltage. And then we upgraded that to a 12S system. And now we have like a new version, which is much more, transportable to the field. It's got the folding arms type of setup. So making it way more user friendly. So that's a really exciting project.
what would an equivalent payload on a traditional lithium battery? How long would that run?
I don't know. I mean, it would probably run about 40 minutes or so, like on one of our big drones.
So you're at least
So
doubling.
yeah, for sure. And I think that it's still very much like this technology is being developed to, increase too. Pretty soon, we're going to be trying to step up the voltage even higher for more efficiency, getting custom propellers, a lot of this stuff. So at this point, it's still we're still pushing the limits, or we're still kind of developing to further push the limits. And we're also working on all sorts of other hybrids, like we do tethered systems, which is, like I mentioned earlier, that uses a gas or some kind of energy source in the ground. And then we also have a heavy fuel, so like diesel, kerosene type of fuel engine, and then another one that's a two-stroke fuel injected water cooled system as well, which are
Like
which
on
are
the
awesome.
drone?
Yeah, it's like a 4 kilowatt generator. If you could picture like one of those Honda E2000s, it's like the power of two of those, but it's like this big.
What?
It's awesome, and it's got a big tuned exhaust on it. So there's a lot of people who have hybrid gas hybrids, but they sound like a weed whacker is about to explode because they're like at max capacity.
Yeah.
But this one's 4 kilowatts. It's water cooled, so we're working on a really cool like radiator system for the arms. But that can really control its like power output. So and it's fuel injected. So if you have an air cooled system and you're at 6,000 feet, like in like Denver or wherever, which I guess is like 5,000 or whatever. But anyways, your high altitude, air cooled system is not going to put out. If it's rated for 2 kilowatt, it's not putting out 2 kilowatt. Whereas with a fuel injected system, it's able to work that fuel air mixture. So that's going to be awesome because that's heavy payloads heavy-ish for like 2+ hours. So that's really exciting also.
2+.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like how much fuel does it take with it at takeoff? Like how big is the tank?
Well, we have a couple different versions, but one of them is basically a gallon and another one's 2 gallons, but we can scale the tank. So we're just coming to find out like what the use case is so that we can kind of scale. You don't want to have these huge tanks. A lot of our customers have to stay at 55 pounds. So like this constant balance, like, well, how much fuel are you putting in and what payload are you flying? So most of the customers for that are in like the 15 to 10 pound range. So that's where we're kind of optimizing the fuel tanks.
For those of you listening at home, when he's saying most of our customers, I think he's referring to there are some customers that don't have to care about the 55-pound payload.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that set the rules.
Yeah, they do whatever they want. Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
So with a gas powered engine, then I assume it's just charging the batteries and then the batteries are discharging into the motors. Do you invite like extra noise from like a shaky motor that like would affect the gyro on the the accelerometer and the gyro on the flight controller?
You totally could if you didn't handle it right. So again, like one of the things that we bring to this is like, how is people going to use this thing in the field? Like you look at a lot of hybrid drones, they just take a hybrid engine, they just put it on the bottom of the drone, like on a gimbal damper, but that's where your payload is going to be. And we think that you shouldn't have a two-stroke exhaust, like spitting out oil around your payload. So we basically built it into the front of the aircraft. We had a really cool dampening system. We have some slow-mo videos, like showing how that dampening system works. And we're still that's the stage we're at now. We're just tweaking it. Right now, it seems to be fine. There's no vibration, which is incredible. But we're looking for, stress testing over a long period of time to see what's going to happen, once someone's using this for a year in super harsh environments. Because we'll try to test everything we can here, and then we send it out to somebody. They're like, oh, we're at 5,000 meters on the side of a mountain in Peru, and there's like this dust that just like eats everything. So like we just try to test everything.
Wait, you don't have the ability to test that in, I can't even say, New Jersey?
Pensauken.
Yeah.
I look at that word, I'm like, we'll put it on the screen right here. It's just like,
just across the Tacony, Palmyra.
Yeah, there's some like a dirt parking lot across the street. It's the closest thing we got.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we try to do like some trips out to like with certain customers if it's like a ongoing project. Like some of these projects will last over a year or whatever in the development. So in those cases, we'll go out and whenever we can get away. Like I love going to see what customers are doing and seeing these things in the field.
Awesome.
So is it technically possible to do an air-to-air refueling if necessary?
That is next. Yeah, Evan and I just quick tangent. We filmed the BMW like drift world record or whatever, and they refueled while they were drifting. I know, Nurk, you do like a ton of drift racing stuff. I don't know if you ever saw that video.
They refueled the car,
so,
right?
Yeah, it's a blue Beamer, and they're refueling the car. They basically took out the back seat, put a fuel tank there, and Evan and I were flying like as I think early on in BFD, we're flying this massive drone. It's a GD40. We don't fly those anymore so much, but it's huge.
GD40 is the biggest drone I've ever flown.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How big? Like propeller size?
Well, no. At GD40, you could use 27s or 26, depending. I mean, you could use 28s. We use 27 because it was like the optimum for us, like the optimum efficiency and RPM.
Sure.
But the thing hauls ass, and it lifts so much weight like it's nothing. So
it's like the Cadillac of heavy lift drones.
Yeah, the wind, like we flew that on some movies in Philly. It was super windy days. It just like sits there, like it's no problem. It's awesome. But we were flying that around that. I was like basically FPVing, and Evan was camera operating, and we were flying in circles for so long with that when we stopped, like the Movi gimbal, like the roll had completely like. It was level when we were flying, but as soon as we stopped, it was like completely silent.
It's like, wait, what?
So anyways, that was an inspiration for the refueling. But yeah, eventually we'll get there. Right now we're still working on dampening, and then we'll work on the air-to-air refueling.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you when you do, you're going to be like, hey, pull up some of that video of that drift. How did they do that? And you're going to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it was an inspiration. I think like also the Air Force air-to-air refueling will be a major inspiration. So
yeah, whatever floats your boat, whatever gets the job done at the end of the day.
Yeah. But you're not the first to bring that up. That's a great idea.
We were actually talking about doing that for fun, like with mini quads, but so like you have like a power lead coming off of one drone and have it like magnetized to another and like just dump extra power into the cell, like not in a responsible way, but like it was not going to be stationary. Like we were going to require that they were going to be moving so that you had the like the funnel thing that would hang off the back of like a like a C-130 that the F-16 had to like stick its nose into. Like we were like, let's do it. But then we just come in, we're like.
You can just get like a power supply. I'll figure this out for you. We should get a power supply and just have it on like a current limiting, so it's a little bit more current than the quad's drawing at that speed. So it'll then power the quad and charge up. It's like how the Tethered stuff works. So
yeah, that'd be perfect.
I'm ready. When you come to visit, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, give Nurk something to chase, and he'll chase it. He's like a dog, like chasing a stick out there.
I really am.
Yeah,
that's all I ever do. I'm just like, what can we chase today?
Oh, I got to refuel for whatever reason. Done. Salivating.
I'll chase it. I'll just.
We had an EE co-op in the spring who is awesome, and he's really. I was hoping that he's going to do so much more chase flight stuff, but it was like he was here from January to March, so.
Shepsta? Are you talking about Shepsta?
Yeah.
Shepsta FPV.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw his Philly video, but
I did.
It was awesome. I was so stoked on that. Yeah.
Very proud of that one, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's all. Max,
coming,
I mean, he flew it, but it's kind of my fault. Like it was, I
have
made the video.
No responsibility for that video. I just think it's cool. But he's coming back in the fall, so hopefully we do some more chasing. Now that we have nicer weather in the fall, so
definitely cool.
So I just want to cover the relationship between BFD and Flying Monster real quick, because that's an interesting one. We've been talking a lot about industrial stuff, and I'm kind of been interjecting in with the the cinema aspect of it. But why don't you tell me what that, because it's a special one, the relationship there.
Well, I mentioned Dan earlier. Like Dan is like a really inspirational dude for.
Who's Dan?
Dan Sheets. He works at with John on some of these monster jobs, and
thank you.
He is one of my old time friends, but he is really taught me procedure stuff on set, like just so locked in with his procedure. He's got everything in his bag. He knows he knows the next 5 steps before you even realize what's going on. So
that's why they call him the doctor.
They do call him Dr. Dan Sheets. So
We got the doctor, we got the diddler, we got the
It's not a real
droner.
doctor though, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask him that. He's not a real
No.
doctor? No.
No, I've heard him drop that line to people and be like, "Oh, cool." And then later they're like, "Oh, what's he doctor?" I was like, "He's not a doctor. What are you talking about?" But in any case, so Dan worked with Monster Remotes for a while, and Dan and I were doing drones for a long time. So that's kind of how I knew about that team over there. And as BFD grew, we kind of made a conscious decision to step away from the film market. One film client will be the same support as like another customer who has like 10 drones. So, we were just like, all right, we're just going to kind of focus on industrial drones because we're working like with the cinema industry. It's just, it's a tough racket. So we just want to stay focused, but we want to keep, a toe in the game. So we were friends with, John and Dexter and all those guys over there. So we decided to kind of partner with Monster and say, okay, we're just going to, instead of, supporting the whole cinema industry, we're just going to have like this exclusive relationship with Monster. So I'll go out on set whenever I'm available. Not so much now, but when you guys were first starting, I go out on set a bunch and, make tweaks to the aircraft or report back to the team here at BFD. They'd make tweaks. So it's a really cool way for us to kind of feed that passion that we have, but also, we're really tightly connected with the operators. We know that these guys are operating safely. If they have a question, they have us to, work with them. They're not going to be flying it overweight or doing dangerous, sketchy stuff. So we don't have to worry about it like turning up in the news or something like that. So like sometimes you see what people are doing in the cinema industry and they're pushing the limits. And like, I think, John, you kind of talked about this in the first episode, but it can be sketchy. If you're flying like a big drone and like the director or some DP or somebody's like yelling at you, like it can very quickly get pushed into unsafe territory, which is a part of the reason why you wanted to get away from it. But like,
That's
I know
called
that
the error chain. I just passed my recurrent exam
it
the other
is
day. That was a
so,
question on the test.
so real in the
Machismo.
film industry. So real in the film industry. So we know that like John and Dexter and Dan and the Diddler and all those guys, like they and the people who run Flying Monster, they don't care what it is. Like they're sticking to what the laws are and what's safe, and it's just unbending. So that makes us feel really safe to like kind of foster this relationship with them and do really cool stuff. Like we still have the opportunity to work on really cool drones. Put these huge cameras on them. So we do this because we love it. So
yeah, shout out to Monster Remotes. They're the parent company of Flying Monster. Real quickly, Monster Remotes, they're the guys that do the big camera cranes on set. So at the end of those camera cranes are something called remote heads, which are essentially big gimbals, but the remote heads is the technical term. You can point the camera in different directions. Back in the day in Hollywood, they used to have an operator on the end of that crane sitting in like a crow's nest or whatever they called it.
Like a cherry picker.
Yeah, like a cherry picker pointing that camera.
Have you seen the video with Claude Van Damme? What's his name?
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Thank you. Brain fart there. There's a shot where they have like an old single rotor helicopter and a guy on the end of the crane. Have you ever seen that? We're gonna have to play it in this podcast.
Pull it up and check it out. It's playing in the YouTube.
Yeah. Anywho, sorry to interrupt.
So what is that? That's not as smart to do anymore. You don't have to do that anymore. Is that what you're saying?
No. Now you have a remote head that does all the
or a drone.
stabilizing or not stabilizing. Yeah. They call it
a BFD Systems S1. Shoot, what's it called?
S8.
What's the name? S8. Thank you.
Yeah. You're starting to go down the DJI S1000.
S1.
Yeah. S8000.
S8000.
Yeah. But
S8.
So what about, you kind of alluded to a little bit, is the difference between a cinema service company, the people that are on set, the egos, what is it called, Nurk? Supply chain reaction?
The error chain.
Error chain. When that happens, does it happen as much in the industrial space as, to your knowledge? What's the difference there between the different groups of people?
That's such a good question. Our first customer at BFD, like we had parted ways with Griffin very amicably. We're still friends with all those guys, but our first customer was like, all right, we need you to bring this drone down here. do this. Basically, had to drop a sensor on a wire, and if it works, then we'll buy it. And like Evan, like, all right, we got this. Let's do it. We did some tests. It worked. We showed up. We did it in front of an engineer. He's like, wow, like the last 4 guys crashed. Can't believe you guys did that. Okay, let's bring out all the other engineers. All right, bring out the other engineers. We did it, and they're like, wow, that was awesome. That must have been stressful. I was like, are you kidding? Like, we're in the field. Like, there's no one around us to get hurt or like whatever. And you guys are engineers. It's not like you're on like a city block with like 200 people like filming it with their cell phone, like waiting for something to happen. So
cop cars coming in, fire, explosions, $1 million actors.
Like generally,
this is after you had been working on sets, and you're
yeah.
now
I was
moving
like,
out to a field.
It's just like this is how it's going to work here. Yeah, this is way better. In my, no offense to you, John, but I was like, well, this is way better. This is like way better for my stress levels. So
John does have a lot of gray hair.
Yeah. I shaved, but like I was working on Alpha House, so I have a lot of gray in my beard from Alpha House, so I struggle for real. But generally, like these people have, they have their big corporations with lawyers, and they want to, like they just have to follow the law. And they have like a whole fleet of aircraft, and like one instance is like really bad. With a film set, those are all like temporary circuses, and they say like safety on set, safety on set. You see the SOS stickers, but like when you have some famous director yelling at you like that, realistically, you have like it's hard to push back on that. So, the industrial people generally take stuff so much safer. They're already like they're like working on a mine, so they have so many. Or like whatever, some construction site or whatever, they have like a safety mindset on a whole another level that just does not exist in the same way.
The biggest risk is almost exclusively to the drone and its payload, and not generally that which it's flying around.
Yeah. I mean, you're not flying near. A lot of these places are much more open, especially with the big drones. They're not like you're not like scanning the facade of a building with a huge drone. You can do that with a small drone, but like generally speaking, they just have like a different level of safety consciousness, and like you said, you're out in the middle of nowhere a lot of times too. So I envy those guys who work out west, like your buddy on the last episode, doing car commercials like in the desert in Utah. Like I live in the Northeast, like I didn't get to do any of that. So like that looks awesome to me. Like that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's no trees to watch out for, no power lines most likely, and you just go for it. It's kind of like flying over the water. People ask me, "Are you afraid to fly over the water?" I was like, "I love flying over the water. There's no obstacles really to worry about it, and it goes forever. So my line of sight can go, thousands of feet. So
so having looked at like kind of the differences between people that operate for cinema or for film or for industrial, like is there kind of crossovers that each group could kind of learn from each other, like especially being in your position to work with and supply both of them, like what do you think that they should be saying to each other?
That's a great question. I think that John was on a job through BFD in the fall, and there was like all these crews, right? And all the different crews had experience in film and industrial, but like John and his crew, like they work together a ton, and they're like, the big dogs because they work on like huge cinema jobs, and they were like their crew worked together like a NASCAR pit team. So I think that like the film crew teams, like
I mean, anytime you have the diddler on set, like
he was also
there. Yeah, he's a crucial dude to that whole establishment there. So but like the drone lands, everyone knows their job. Like I said, like the procedural things come in, like the chain of command stuff comes in. So not to say that all film people get that, but
you've got the ear techs on.
Yeah. There's a level of coordination. And not to mention, like a lot of this industrial stuff. I mean, drones have been around for way longer than most people realize. But like, as far as we know them now, it's only like 10 years, more or less. So
sure, yeah, absolutely.
As they are now. So like that definitely, like the industrial market came out of the hobbyist, which went to film and then industrial, like a lot of these industrial applications. So the industrial applications wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the photographers and filmmakers, for sure. And the filmmakers wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the hobbyist, so.
Well, so let's bring it back for full circle then for operators that are industrial and cinema and are specialized in using these highly technical pieces of equipment. What would you want to bring back to the hobbyist community? As somebody that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are just in it for the hobbyist, but what advice could you give someone having been around those aspects of it?
Yeah. So I think that you know, I look at the our customer base and also like who's available for us to hire, and I feel like so many of our customers, or just the general drone population, it's not just our customers that they kind of get into it through DJI, and then when they want to move on to something more advanced, it's like a little bit of a learning curve. So I think that like from the hobbyist, like learning how to fly line of sight without a GPS is like really not a skill that you would think more people have that skill. So just learning like how these aircraft work, how to fix them, like the FPV racing community has like it's such an awesome, such an awesome savior, I think, because like everyone's like working and tweaking and there's like this community aspect of it. So I think that's fantastic. And then, learning some of these other softwares, like I know that you guys use Betaflight a lot, but like learning ArduCopter or ArduPilot, PX4, like if I ever like am talking with people, I'm like, oh, I know how to tune a copter. Like one of our geniuses who works here, I think we met him at like a bar or something, and he knew how to. He like mentioned that he knew how to tune an ArduCopter. Like, oh, really? We started talking to him. Turns out he's a great engineer and like a whiz with radios. Mike, who's one of the partners here, also. Evan and I drove out to Flight Fest in Ohio, and we just decided like last second. We drive out there. We set up a table.
Like, get my mini Talon in the back. We're going to Ohio.
Yeah, I brought the mini Talon. That's right. And we set up a table and we set up. And there's a bunch of kids next to us, or like college kids. They're like, "Oh, where are you guys from?" They're like, "Oh, we're all from Drexel." And Mike was one of those guys. So when we were first starting off, and we know we needed help on like the ArduCopter side, like that's how we got Mike. So like all the people who work here, and especially the founders, all had like a really strong history or roots in the hobby industry. So yeah, I mean, our EE I was talking about, Chefstead, he got into it through racing. Now he's pursuing electrical engineering, and he's going to have a sick job.
Yeah, I didn't understand really how quadcopters worked until I started building my racing quads. I still there's still a huge. I still don't know. There's still a lot I don't know, but at least I know what ESCs are supposed to do and how they integrate with what do you call it, the PDBs and
there's something in there. It's just a bunch of magic. Yeah.
For hobbyists that want to get started in commercial drone operations, what advice do you have for them? I mean, you mentioned briefly learn stuff other than Betaflight, but like what other steps could they take? Like, so say they wanted to work at BFD, or they wanted to work at
Freefly,
one of the places that BFD supplies, stuff like that. Like, what have you seen? What attributes of people have you seen that aspiring commercial drone operators should be pursuing now?
Go to the bar and talk about tuning quadcopters.
That's it. Yeah. Or Flight Fest, either one.
Yeah,
depending on how
that's pretty easy.
So I think I kind of like I think that when we're looking at like our customers and like the people we want to hire, I think that the best come out of like the realm. So when you look at some of the people who are trying to go off and do it by themselves, like sometimes I wish I had the opportunity when I was first starting off to like go work for somebody else, because there wasn't that many opportunities. And the people I did reach out to, like they didn't even respond. So like definitely try to go work for other people and try to mix it up a little bit, because I think I'm so fortunate to have learned from people, not necessarily in the drone industry, although I did work for other drone companies, but also just in like the film industry and some of the manufacturing industries,
or some of the big companies that use drones, like doing inspection work, stuff like that.
So like there's definitely a deficit in the country of people who know how to use drones, and not just DJI. Like DJI is a great platform, but like if you only fly a DJI drone, first of all, I don't even think drone operators should call themselves pilots, because I think that's a little bit silly personally. But like if you only know how to fly a DJI drone, you're not a drone pilot even. Like those things fly themselves. They're great. But like, learn how to operate without collision avoidance and GPS, if you want to be operating. And then really like you said, building. building the drones, you really learn what the inner workings are, learn about radios, and it's hard because there's so much information out there. But be active on those forums, share information when you have it, and take criticism and advice when you can, and just never be satisfied with like, oh, this is good enough. Like there's always ways to improve on stuff, and just kind of keep pushing on your build quality and learning about what the newest technology is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds expensive, when we
Yeah.
talk about these big drones and these $500,000 sensors on the bottom, is that what it
Uh,
takes to do? Do you have to
yeah.
spend a ton of money?
No. Well, yeah. It's, first of all, getting into drone stuff is expensive, even when you're doing it at the hobbyist level. But
Right.
like, if you can fly one of these small ones, it really transfers over to the big boys. So like, there's a new company that's coming out with it's basically like a circuit board. I don't think they're out yet. It's called ArduPilot. It's awesome. It's a whole PCB and has a flight controller and ESCs and motors all on it, and you can run ArduCopter on it. So that's like a I don't know how much they cost or anything yet, but it's meant to be like a learning tool. They're small guys, and they have like lights on them. I think they even have like some indoor navigation, maybe GPS. So that would be one example of like a perfect tool to like learn how ArduCopter works. Even like a lot of race drones.
So let me get back to that because that's some
Oh
really
yeah, sorry.
fascinating technology. We briefly talked about that offline, but are these kind of like a la carte components you can build and add to create the drone that you want? Is that what it's like, or is
It,
it a
I don't know. I think it's more for like a
yeah,
programming tool. It's not out yet, and
okay.
I've like glazed through the website a few times, so I don't want to misspeak. But my
What
perception.
about that? What about that idea? Okay, if it doesn't
Yeah.
exist, that's one thing. But what about that idea? Do you really is fascinating to you, or encourages
Just like
you?
an accessible way to work with ArduCopter, because ArduCopter, there's other softwares, but like it is limitless what you can do with it. And when we first started using it here at BFD, we had used it personally for like hobby stuff, but like tuning a big copter with ArduCopter is a whole different story. But it's tough. You're like, oh, you're trying to like meet the expectations of a DJI drone in the beginning. It's really, really tough, especially with the large copters, as far as flight performance and like how it deals with wind. But after enough time and tuning and like learning, I think that we can easily match that now. But with the RGB or the what's it called? Is it RGB? I think it's something like that. But
Yeah, that's what you said before.
okay, good. We'll go with that. And if it's wrong, I'll correct it in the comments
Yeah,
or
we'll
whatever.
fix it
But
in post.
we fix it in post. But the cool thing
We
about that
won't.
is you can all the hardware stuff is kind of figured out, and it seems like it's a little bit modular, but it gives you the opportunity to work with ArduCopter, ArduPilot, and start experimenting with some of that code. You can do this on like a 250 quad or some of these other, just as long as your flight controller will work with ArduCopter. And ArduCopter is the software, which a lot of people will confuse like Pixhawk and ArduCopter hardware
Yeah,
software. It's the same thing, but
Pixhawk is
learning,
just a hardware flight
yeah,
controller available that runs ArduCopter.
yeah, and specifically, like, there's different people who make Pixar controllers. We use a Cube
Yeah.
one. There's like one sitting next to me. Oh, it doesn't have a cube in it yet, but it's like what most people, if you Google Pixar 2.1, a picture of cube shows up. So that's what we use.
The orange
Yeah,
cube, right?
we use the orange cube as of recently. It just kind of came out, and we had to like run it through months of flying, but it's awesome. So, but that code that you could use on a small copter will work on some of these bigger ones. So from a hobbyist perspective, for relatively low cash, you can kind of really start to dive into that.
So to kind of sum up, like, for those that are wanting to become commercial pilots, never be satisfied with what you have learned and pursue as many different opportunities of learning as you can to bolster your skills, not only as an operator, but also as someone that understands these machines to the point where, you can tear them down and work on them and understand them and know why something is or isn't happening. When those flight characteristics happen.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Really, just understand it.
I'm gonna
And work.
jump in real quick too because I came from the DJI background. I was flying helis and stuff before that. My first DJI drone, but once I got my DJI drone, that's really where my expertise came, from, I was an expert DJI drone operator, right? I knew how to fly with the sensors off and stuff like that. But I want to take this twofold, because if you are a DJI enthusiast, you can get into Betaflight, you can get into
Oh, for
ArduCopter.
sure.
And if you're an ArduCopter enthusiast, you can and maybe should get into DJI too. There's a lot of ArduCopter people that I've met, that have never flown a DJI drone, not once. And for my background, that was kind of like, holy shit, like how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's always for the right reasons too, right? It's like, oh well, I can make it do all this stuff on my own. Well, like, yeah, but if you know these technologies as well, some things to strive for, and like what other people's experiences are, and you can interact with people in a more positive way because of that.
Yeah, and flying a DJI drone, I was kind of talking a little smack, but like they're so easy to learn on that they're like, it's a really great way to kind of get your hand-eye coordination. Like I remember building my first flame wheel, and like I didn't know that it was just manual mode. I hadn't even, like, the first like 2 times it was just in manual. I was like, this isn't that much better than a helicopter. And then I figured out Addy mode. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Just like levels itself out. So it's a great way to learn. It's you're not crashing nearly as much. So I'm not like trying to talk smack on DJI too much, but don't restrict yourself to that one thing. And also, like you said, if you haven't used DJI and you have the opportunity, like it's totally worth trying to get hands on one of those aircraft, because they're very, very common. And there's like a few things on DJI software, like on the GCS, on the iPad or whatever, that are kind of cross all the different aircraft as far as where menu settings are. I've been on jobs with like the Inspire 2 or whatever. I'm like, I know how to fly this thing, but I can't. I don't know where the hell stuff is in the menu. So like, there's definitely a value to learning that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes to, I kind of want to breach the subject now of like the manufacturing options that are at the table now for a consumer, and you being on the side of manufacturing. We have several products that are now made in the USA, and we still have a ton, maybe the majority of the products still made in China, for instance. What is the future of drone manufacturing, and what can you say about products that are manufactured in the US versus, products that are overseas?
Especially in light of the recent remote ID regulations and how that is also impacting, what you're able to use and register in the United States, especially.
Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely this like conception that stuff made in China is like of a lower quality, which is, it's a ridiculous conception. Like there's great stuff that comes out of China and a lot of the East Asian countries, South Korea, where Griffin's at. There's a lot of really good drones over there. I think that it's a little bit different. Like I think what I mentioned in the beginning is a lot of our customers come to us for an aircraft that performs, but also for that like level of integration and support. And like if you're a company like DJI, like they're not gonna, unless you're buying a ton of aircraft or putting a ton of money down, they're not necessarily gonna like do some custom integration for you. And if you like want to have your own custom software, like that will work until there's a firmware upgrade, and then you never know. And there's obviously security issues.
Not going to happen. They're not going to support you in the field.
No. So like having a U.S. drone manufacturer, like first of all, for like government, there's an incentive for government agencies to use U.S. made drones to support the industry here. And then like Freefly, they are an awesome company. We're super inspired what Freefly does. Their engineering and their machining is just so on point. But they mainly focus on the cinema industry. They're kind of getting into the industrial industry, and I think that's where they're going to go. But even Freefly mainly focuses on the manufacturing, where we mainly focus on like the R&D and the integration. So like our tagline is outsource your aircraft R&D. So a lot of our customers will have like a drone department, which is either like meant to like go fly the drones as a service, or work on the payload, but like they don't have to start from scratch. Like that, it's cheaper for them to hire us to like figure out all the aircraft and interfacing than it is to like build an aircraft from scratch. So, that's why we're a little bit different than what Freefly does, which is more just like, I wouldn't say mass producing, but like mainly focusing on just making an awesome aircraft.
Yeah, they make a consumer level drone that's basically you can buy at
Yeah.
B&H or on the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
Freefly is a company based just outside of Seattle. They make all types of products like
Yeah.
the Freefly Movi Pro, which is the gimbal that we use underneath the drone. It's a fantastic product. They make
And
They make it
we're
all the way down to like little phone gimbals and everything
yeah,
too, you know?
the Movi. Yeah.
yeah, they make the Movi. I mean, that's like I mean, without the Movi, we wouldn't be enabled to get the shots that we need to get. Really, thank
Yeah.
God for the Movi Pro.
But you
Before,
use a Movi on a BFD drone, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we do. Yep.
Well, it's like the Movi is a cell phone one, and then like there's M5, which is like the 5-pounder. I don't think they make that anymore. Then there's an M10, which was the original. Anyways, there's a whole bunch. Movi Pro is what most people use now.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah,
actually resell Freefly shit. So like if someone has a need that's within what Freefly aircrafts do, like oh great, we'll just use this, and then we can do all our work, our R&D, or whatever integration, and
Yeah.
we just have to build a whole aircraft. So we're working on a Tethered system now. So we think that the Tethered system will work great. Actually, I know it works great because we've been testing it on the Alta X, which is like you can hold a huge cinema camera, have 6,000 watts of power, 2 fiber optic cables to it, so you could have broadcast cameras going. So we just started kind of when the Alta X came out. I was finally like, all right, this thing is awesome. I want to play
No
with one.
redundancy though.
Yeah, well, that's true, but it's not for everybody. For
and
some
it's a
people,
little
it's okay.
it's a little heavy for to stay legal, but
It is heavy for yeah. So like I said, our drones aren't going anywhere,
yeah, your
but
drones are
there
not going
are
anywhere.
there are niches where that drone makes sense. So
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
And
and
they're continuing to like, man, I only want to support a company and a guy like Tab who's like continuing to pursue
yeah,
these achievements in aviation and UAS aviation and engineering feats. I mean, there's stuff on that Alta X that we haven't seen before,
yeah.
the
It,
prop mounts and the way it folds in and stuff like that. So it's like, you got to love it, right?
I don't think people realize like the amount of integration they have in their first Altas is so cool because you go to these like trade shows, which is where we find a lot of our vendors like components. They're like, oh, you have this guy who makes a cool motor, this guy who makes a cool speed controller, this person who makes a cool flight controller. It's like, do any of them talk to each other? They're like, no, no, no. It's all proprietary protocols. Like Freefly had these CAN bus ESCs that talk to the flight controller from like the get, just I don't know, it was a while ago. So that's like they've been doing really cool stuff for a long time. And also like Tab specifically, when I was like flying helicopters and trying to put gimbals on it, I had like I think it was an AV200. It was like a servo 2-axis gimbal, and I was like, this shit ain't gonna work. And then I saw Tab do it on I don't know, it was like a 700 size. He had an AF100. They still play the video in B&H. And he's like flying through these. I was like, oh, okay, it's possible. I know he's using a servo gimbal, and it looks awesome.
You pause it. What is that
Yeah.
right there?
How
Oh
did,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like there's like a one scene where you can see the helicopter. Like, hold on,
Enhance.
pause, yeah. How the hell? So like, yeah, he's been very inspirational, and Freefly does really cool stuff. But like you said, in terms of aircraft, there's a lot of niches that our aircraft fill that theirs don't. So there's plenty of room for everybody.
Yeah, exactly, and even if it is that 15% of the market that they say drones, have, if it's the 15%, you guys are still able to, obviously have plenty of customers and produce these aircraft and put real dollars into research and development to produce better products. Guys like me just thank you for it because I need guys like you, Max, and Tab to continue to push the limits for these aircrafts because I'm asking for it, so yeah, thanks. I know
sure.
Nurk, you were out there at Freefly also too, right? For a couple months ago, right?
Yeah,
Didn't
I was
you
out
pick
there
that thing?
I was out there with Rotor Riot, and we met up with Daniel Riley, who does
Oh yeah.
RC test flight, but he also works at Freefly. And they brought out an Alta X. Like it was probably within a month of the product launch. They brought out an Alta X and let us all fly it in acro mode, like just full stick. Like we could do whatever we want. I actually never flipped it because I wasn't interested in that.
Yeah.
Instead, I took it down as low as I could to the deck and just went full bore across the ground. Like I'm like cutting grass with the
Yeah.
planes in
Yeah.
like the Freefly test field. Like everybody knows what it looks like. And dude, when that thing comes past you like 10 feet away at it was more than that, but like it felt closer than that at 50 miles an hour. Like
Yeah.
it just sounds like a plane is going by. It's like
Yeah. That
you're like,
active
"Ah!"
swash has such a cool sound to it.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an awesome. And I got to Cine Whoop in their headquarters and
Yeah.
kind of show off all of the toys that they got in there. It was awesome. It was a really, really cool opportunity.
You mentioned Dan Riley, and like that's a perfect example of like a hobbyist going to, just like John and myself, but like, I watch his videos forever. He has so many cool videos of like just experimenting and figuring stuff out. And he turned that
I
into a
drop
career.
everything I'm doing and watch anything he puts out.
Yeah. Oh, it's
It's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
BFD sponsored his solar plane. I think there's a video that I like zoomed in. I was like, I can see BFD on the side of it.
Pause, enhance.
There's like 15 other people, so
Yeah. It's awesome.
Well,
Well,
I got a question about that video, Nurk, before we change the subject. Did one of those, since no one's going to be watching this far into the podcast anyway, this is like, right, this is where we can like drop the scoop. Did one of those, upon a flip, did they go down? Did it not come out of that power loop? Because in that video, it's made it seem like there was potentially a hard
we
landing
did not crash the Alta X. No.
Okay.
Jamie flew it and she did a flip that was very like we underestimated how fast the rates were on it. It was something like 100 degrees per second, where like we're like, okay, slow rates, like you're thinking like 300 degrees per second, it's still going to roll once in a second, but this is like it takes 2 full seconds to complete a rotation. And she gave it altitude, but it got a little bit low, but like the video made it look way lower than it actually was.
Yeah, like went
there was no crash
below the tree line or whatever.
And what we didn't say in the video, because like we wanted that like $16,000 drone like tagline on the video, it was actually like Daniel made that Alta X himself with like prototype pieces and like scraps that weren't ever going to go into production. So like it was really just like it was mostly an Alta X.
It was a beater.
It wasn't like we went and just grabbed one off the assembly line, Yeah, a beater. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've talked a lot about the kinds of projects that you have worked on, the ones that have inspired you, the kinds of things that you want to see hobbyists working on. Like, what as we're kind of wrapping up here, like what do you see as the next 5-10 years for BFD Systems? What does the future look like in terms of on a micro level, like little projects that you're working on now, or at a bigger level, like what do you see happening in the industrial and commercial drone space over the next 10 years, and what are you excited about? What are you nervous about? All that.
Well, I'm definitely nervous about remote ID. So I don't even want to get into it because I'm going to get all excited.
That's a future episode, it sounds like.
Nervous about that. I mean, to briefly touch on that, I totally see the reason why that should be required, because as eVTOLs, electric VTOLs, electric unpiloted but manned aircraft become more popular, like that is going to revolutionize air traffic in the
You're saying like a drone taxi kind of thing.
Drone taxi, yeah. So like, you got to figure out how you're going to manage the skies, and I don't think that there's a big enough budget to the FAA to figure all this stuff out. And I don't envy the FAA, but like they're throwing some curveballs with this one. So hopefully it kind of gets sussed out a little bit. But I am nervous about that as far as like the industry as a whole, not just for BFD, but like a lot of this
mainly because of the hobbyists, like restrictions and things like that. Or
yeah, because like all of us started from a hobby, and if all of a sudden you make it illegal for like hobbyists, like high school kids, middle school kids, whatever, to just like get into it without like some advanced transponder, just it's gonna be a lot. The barrier to entry,
or even increased paywall too.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is gonna be a lot harder, and like all of a sudden that dries up the talent of like people who are interested in this hobby and
Right.
profession and all this stuff. So like when it first came out, everyone was freaking out about the Wi-Fi thing, and I was like, I only read the first 28 pages like the first couple of days. And I was like, which was within the first 28 pages, it says you do not need Wi-Fi. There's like options for that. So I was like, all right. In the beginning, I was like, someone else changed my mind. I don't get what the problem is. But then I can't remember who it was. Maybe Joshua Bardwell did a podcast with a few people, and they were like, there's only going to be set fields, and then once those are applied, you can never like apply for new ones ever again. I was like, oh, well, that is ridiculous. But I'm going to stop myself on the remote ID stuff because there's a lot to unpack there. But what I'm excited about, well, there's a lot more to be excited about. I think like the beyond line of sight thing right now, that's to me like the most exciting, because if you're thinking about our customers, as an example, they're doing scans with LiDARs or whatever, and we can offer them, between 30 to like 50 minutes of flight. And at that point, you can pretty much get everything that you can see in that area.
Which is a fantastic flight time, by the way. I mean, that's like double than I think I know what's available.
Yeah, and that's with like a 20-pound payload too. So, and the whole aircraft's under 55 pounds.
Yeah.
So, but as we do these hybrids, like these gas hybrids, these like other fuel systems, hydrogen fuel cell, then it's like, okay, well, you could have one person get a whole utility line, or not a whole utility line, but they could go for 2 hours in one direction, have it land
miles, right?
Then the return on investment on drones just like exponentially gets so much bigger. You don't have to like leapfrog down these utility access ways, or like a big pit mine, or like for these magnetometer scans. One of our customers did, I think it was 1,000-kilometer scan, and they're leapfrogging down for 1,000 kilometers. If you could do that instead of you increase by 30 minutes or 40 minutes to like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. It's just like a huge leap in what
the efficiencies, are just incredible at that point, right?
But those hybrid, exactly. But those like hybrid aircraft really are banking on, the beyond line of sight waivers. And different countries have different rules. Some countries have been at it for a while. There's a company called Iris Automation that has a really cool. It's basically a series of cameras that will look for air traffic. So that's like, there's another company that does it with audio, but there's a bunch of different options for like traffic mitigation. As far as the FAA is concerned, they don't want you to hit other airplanes or people. Like whether, the drone crashes or whatever, they just don't want it hurting anybody. Yeah. So there's a lot of new technology in that. Like we're working with a company that's developing new motors that have like just crazy amounts of telemetry. So if you're going far away, you can't hear your motor if there's an issue. But if you can tell the bearing temperature and like some of these other things, vibration, a current draw, like then it just like automates a lot of this stuff, so that if you can't see it, like you just have your whole dashboard, like as if you're flying an aircraft. So there's a lot of really cool technology that all kind of will make beyond line of sight that much better and that much more possible. And of course, like battery technology hasn't changed in a long time, but there's a lot of like possibilities for like batteries making a big leap in the not too distant future. Although I've heard that for a while too, so who knows when that will happen.
I feel like we've been hearing that for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
We're still just iterations of the same thing.
Mini thorium reactors on there soon. You'll never need to land.
The Superman or the Iron Man like little chest thing. Like...
Yeah.
Well, as long as it has a BFD logo on the side of it, I trust it, and I'm going to probably try to fly it, Max.
Awesome. Well, I trust you with it too, so there you go.
I've seen him fly FPV. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But
I've seen him fly the S8 with like a 20-pound payload, like full. He had his goggles on, just like fully ripping that. You gotta show that video at some point. That was awesome. Because we get so used to seeing these like the mapping aircraft kind of putting around like 10 meters a second, which isn't slow, but it's not fast. And then you give the sticks to John, and he rips it like it's a 250 quad.
Hey, you got to put it through its tests. You got to test at the limit, not at what is common.
Do you remember the sound that we heard from that?
Yeah.
specifically. We had some. Well, we actually found a new problem because of that test. The props
Yeah.
were flexing so much it was like striking one of the nuts on the arm.
No,
But
it's
that
like
was
it like I think it struck like that. One of them struck the arm in like, and we had seen that on like some old props, and then basically we used a stiffer prop. Any coaxial, like you have that threat of it hitting the actual arm. But it turns out if you have a 55, or actually no, excuse me, if you have a 54.9 pound aircraft
that's right.
going 50 miles an hour, and you do a hard 90-degree bank turn, and then like punch out, like you just stress the aircraft. Oh, 3D printer's done. You just stress the aircraft in like a different way than we had seen. So
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love every time I come over to you guys and hang out and get to fly some of that stuff. Obviously, I have a blast. So maybe in the future we'll do an episode. We'll be at your shop and we'll be able to do some type of interactive tour around, or maybe we'll get Evan on or something like that.
For sure.
I would love that so much.
I'm excited for you guys to fly these hybrids and see how you can break them. So
I promise I'll find a way.
Well, without hitting the ground, I should say.
Oh, okay. I will hit John with like one hybrid into another.
Yeah, it was like
chase
ouch.
with it, right? We're coming back to chasing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Max, thank you so much for coming on. We want to kind of give you an opportunity to promote everything you want to talk about, your socials, BFD socials, all that stuff, projects coming up.
Yeah, I mean, BFD Systems on social. We're not like huge on social, but I try to post cool stuff. And I'm trying to post like more content on our YouTube channel too. Of like we have some like test of like doing motor out test, and we have so many things that we can't share just yet. But like pretty soon we'll be like releasing some of those videos also. So
yeah, so your
Awesome.
Instagram is at BFD Systems, and then your personal Instagram, which is actually I think sometimes more entertaining, maybe more exclusive, is at Maxwell_Tubman. As if
you want to see like pictures of my daughter and many talents, then there you go.
And many talents.
Yeah,
she loves them, by the way.
Good. You gotta have that. You gotta love when I think that's probably my biggest fear in the world, is that when I have kids, they're just like not interested in drones at all. Like it's gonna be like, well, okay.
Yeah, she's like 1.5 right now, so like shiny things, we'll see how she'll probably get over it pretty quick.
She'll probably hate it.
You know what, Paul? Something happens when you have a kid. It's like my daughter's almost 2 years old. You know what? She's a piece of you, dude. She's gonna love drones probably just as much as you are, bro.
Yeah,
she has to
until she turns like 12 or 13.
Then it's okay. Then there's some independence too,
Yeah.
But
she's like, I just want the drone to take me to the mall.
Yeah,
because it's flying her away, and you're just like, whatever. Malls don't exist.
Not in 13 years. Forget it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, thank you so much, Max, for coming on here. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I think we covered a lot of really good stuff in this conversation.
I forgot we were doing a podcast, actually.
That's good. We want this like candid conversation. We want a little bit of a scoop into your life and to see what actually makes you guys work over there, because I know you're doing some really cool stuff, but a lot of people don't. So we want to help you guys get the word out. And
that's what this is about, is telling the stories behind what's going on, the good flights that we all have, whether that's on the ground or through the kinds of stuff that we're doing behind the scenes. It's good to talk about it.
Yeah, big fan of the pod, guys. Keep it up.
Thank you for your support, and thank you everybody for your support listening on Spotify podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Google is also now available. But please also check out the YouTube version of this. A lot of times, even in the last episode, we brought in as we're talking about these videos, we'll overlay the video into that video, so you can really experience it kind of as we're talking about it. And that's really cool.
Want to see Max Tubman's face. Like it's just
it's spot on. Whatever you're imagining, it's
face for radio.
Face for radio, and he's definitely not drinking a beer right there. He's definitely that not a beer. That was
it's definitely not a Corona.
Super cheap right now.
I was gonna say, did you get a discount on that?
Oh yeah, so give them away.
Really? That's good to know.
All you have to do is go in without a mask on. They'll give you one.
All over your head.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Well,
also be sure to follow Nurk FPV on Instagram, and myself is Johnny_drones on Instagram. I got to start posting more, but thank you guys for following me there. It's been really, really cool. So yeah, Max,
all right.
Nurk,
Party on, guys.
we did it again.
Oh, the song again.
I was a little slow on that one. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in another week. It's been a blast.
Hey, Max.
Hey, hold on. One last thing. Well, first of all, Evan's got to do a focus check. Let me get one thing before you do that.
That looks
It's
cool.
gotta be-
Paul.
It's gotta be nice to be the boss.
You can't.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it looks nice.